Number 8. Robin Armstrong. Social media comedian Robin Armstrong was launched 10 feet in the air when an airbag placed under his seat exploded in June 2020. Known as Baldy Geordie on Facebook, he was engaged in a long-standing prank war with his girlfriend, who had set up the stunt. The incident was filmed for his page and showed the 30-year-old comedian sitting on a makeshift seat of tires before being thrown into the air and half landed on the inflatable pool set up in front of him. Left groaning on the ground, someone got close-up footage of his face as he complained of difficulty breathing. A trip to the closest hospital showed the stunt had fractured his spine, and after coming off 15 weeks of lockdown, he was forced into another 3 weeks of bed rest to heal. His girlfriend was not aware of just how much pressure an airbag inflates with. It was impressively able to launch Armstrong, who weighed an estimated 245 pounds, 10 feet in the air. The social media star urged his followers not to try the stunt for themselves, but posted a clip to his page nonetheless. He apologized for the dangerous mishap by ordering 30 pizzas for the NHS staff that helped him recover. Number 7. Christian Edwards. In July of 2019, Christian Edwards and her son were driving in the family's Model 3 Tesla when they were involved in an accident on the I-95 interstate highway. The accident, apparently caused by another car hitting them and sending their vehicle crashing into the guardrail, was made infinitely worse when every airbag in the car failed to deploy. A public health professor at the George Washington University, Edwards was wearing her seatbelt but still suffered severe injuries and major head trauma, while her son was left with back pain. The family filed a lawsuit against Tesla, who had boasted that the Model 3 was the safest car ever built and had the lowest risk of injury after government testing. Nonetheless, the Edwards lawsuit argued that there was something fundamentally wrong with some of the car's safety features, given their experience. Tesla didn't immediately respond to the case, but the family was seeking monetary compensation for medical bills, Christian's lost earning capacity, and the physical and mental suffering caused by the accident. Number 6. Joanne and Rick Uke. While showing their visiting family the beautiful Saskatchewan prairies, Joanne and Rick Uke were driving along in their 2006 Honda Odyssey EX when its airbags randomly deployed. The incident occurred during the Canadian Thanksgiving holidays in October of 2017, and the family had been driving under the speed limit along a straight, level gravel road when the side airbags went off with a violent bang. Along with being shaken up, Joanne revealed the sudden deployment left her ears ringing, while Rick suffered shoulder and head pain. This was the second time this incident had occurred to the Ukes after the car's airbags randomly deployed 2 years earlier. No one was injured the first time, but in both cases there was no crash, no collision, and no reason for the airbags to deploy. Honda replaced the airbags the first time as a gesture of goodwill, but after the second time refused to help. Despite experts saying otherwise, the car manufacturer blamed the driver, the gravel road, and small modifications made to the car, such as a trailer hitch. The Ukes attempted to make a deal with Honda Canada to trade in the car and pay a couple of $1,000s for another used vehicle, but no agreement was reached, and the couple resigned to leaving the dangerous car unused with the airbags still hanging down. Similar incidents had been reported with owners taking the onus as insurance companies wouldn't pay out if there'd been no collision or accident. Number 5. Jules Brangman. One of the biggest automotive recalls in US history was centered on defective airbags, which were connected to the deaths of 8 people by 2014. Included in that list is the passing of 26-year-old Jules Brangman, a former long-term girlfriend of actor Scott Eastwood. On September the 7th of 2014, she was driving from San Diego to Los Angeles in a rented 2001 Honda Civic when she was involved in a minor fender bender that led to her death. The small accident triggered her car's defective airbags, which blasted metal shrapnel through her throat after inflating with too much force. Brangman had been taking a year off to try her hand at modeling before starting her PhD. The news was devastating to her single father, who went on to sue Honda, the airbag manufacturer, and her car's rental company for wrongful death. A report revealed that the chemical the manufacturer used to inflate the airbags could become unstable under certain conditions, causing the metal canister inside to explode. The case was settled for an undisclosed amount, allowing her father to dedicate the rest of his life to advocacy groups against defective products. It took reportedly 2 years after Brangman's death for Eastwood to reach out to her father and acknowledge her death, eventually earning his apology for never reaching out. Number 4. Ronald Smith. Retired engineer Ronald Smith was driving home through Hartlepool, England on November the 12th of 2010 when he was involved in a 6-car bumper-to-bumper accident. The accident wasn't serious, but through a series of unfortunate events, Smith got a face full of noxious fumes when a falling shard from a broken window ruptured his inflating airbag. Shaken but seemingly unharmed from the crash, he returned home without needing to go to a hospital. Upon his return, his wife noticed his face was irritated from the contents of the bag, and as the days went on, Smith developed a cough and shortness of breath. The days turned into weeks, as the previously fit and active 59-year-old became more and more hindered by his breathing problems. Eventually, by January, his condition was so poor that he could barely move, and was taken to the hospital by his wife. He was given oxygen immediately, and just a day later was admitted to intensive care. A forensic pathologist said Smith's lungs were extremely heavy and firm. On January the 31st, he passed away from bronchial pneumonia. A spokesman for the Automobile Association said they had no record of any similar deaths and that airbags usually release nitrogen, which is not hazardous. However, his death was recognized as a result of the exploding airbag and was officially classified as a misadventure. Number 3. Huma Hanif. In 2013, a series of deaths and injuries caused by faulty airbags led Honda and Japanese automotive manufacturer Takata Corporation to recall 3.6 million cars. Unfortunately, the Hanif family, like many others, was never aware and unknowingly continued to drive a car that was nothing more than a moving death trap. On March the 31st of 2016, 17-year-old Huma Hanif was driving her 2002 Honda Civic, which was still on the road 3 years after the recall, to her job in Richmond, Texas. She was involved in a fender bender. Given the damage, the high school senior should have been able to walk away from the accident. But instead, she only just made it out the door before collapsing on the ground. A faulty airbag had caused a small explosion that launched metal shrapnel into the side of her neck, severing several arteries. An investigation into the crash confirmed her vehicle to be among the millions that had been recalled. As the number of deaths associated with the airbags continued to grow, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration in the US ordered an additional recall of more than 42 million cars across the nation. Honda made assurances that notices of the recall had been sent to them prior to the accident, but the Hanif family was adamant they hadn't received them. They filed a wrongful death lawsuit against all parties involved, including Honda, Takata, and the local car dealer. By the end of 2016, a settlement was reached for an undisclosed amount. Less than a year later, in June of 2017, Takata Corporation filed for bankruptcy and was acquired by another company. Today's topic was requested by Frogger74, Tankin Trucker, Argyle Boy, and Creole Smile. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Anthony Amoris. A recent high school graduate, 18-year-old Anthony Amoris loved cars and was halfway through his first year studying auto mechanics at Rockland Community College in New York when he was involved in a car crash. It was January of 2013 and he was on the way to his job when he lost control of the car on a windy, icy stretch of road. He crashed into a tree just outside the municipal golf course and lost his life when an airbag failed to deploy, unbeknownst to him or his family until after the tragic event. The 2003 Mazda Protégé, which he'd recently purchased from a used car lot, contained no airbags. However, there was a loophole in New York state law that allowed the sale of cars without functioning or even present airbags. It was a loophole that Amoris' family vowed to fight after his untimely passing. Calling it a common sense and life-saving measure, they first worked with legislators to craft a bill that would require retailers to disclose if a car's airbags were missing or malfunctioning before a sale. In the end, they took it further and decided to put forward that airbags should be included in the list of required vehicle equipment, along with other safety devices like seatbelts. In his honor, they named it Anthony's Law and hoped his legacy would live on to help others. Number 1. Rekeon Barnett. Despite over 100 reported warnings from Honda the Takata airbag scandal continued to claim victims almost a decade after their initial recall. On January the 8th of 2021, South Carolina driver Rekeon Barnett became the 19th victim of a faulty Takata airbag in the US after he was involved in a crash while making a left turn. As with the other victims, the crash shouldn't have claimed his life, but the canister holding the airbag exploded, propelling its lid right into Barnett's mouth and sticking in his throat. Succumbing to his injuries later, the cause of death was proven to be the result of severe trauma to his lower face. A scathing review emerged to explain what happened, stating, "Takata's descent into greed, death, and failure begins with its choice to move from an expensive, rare but stable propellant to a cheap, common but volatile alternative." Barnett, who had bought the Accord in question as a used car, wasn't the registered owner, and it's unclear if he knew that this car fell under the recall. Thanks for watching. Would you rather be in a car crash without an airbag or boat crash without a life jacket? Let us know in the comments section below.